today we're going to be talking about genetic traits and natural selection. We're just going to review what we talked about yesterday. We're going to look at our key vocabulary that we filled in our tip chart yesterday. We're going to take a look at Charles Darwin and his Galapagos finches that we looked at yesterday. And we're going to see how genetic traits and natural selection work together. Okay? So, to review what we did yesterday, let's very quickly get out our interactive notebooks, and with our elbow partner, let's jot down on page 123 in our interactive notebooks what we already know about Charles Darwin and natural selection. So I'm going to give you guys about 2 or 3 minutes to talk with your elbow partner and look at what we learned yesterday about Charles Darwin and natural selection using our natural selection graphic organizers. We should be talking with our elbow partners about what we learned about natural selection.
He was a scientist.
Right. So we're looking at how Charles Darwin had our 4 main parts of natural selection, right? So we have overproduction, and we have the variation, struggle to survive, and successful reproduction. So those are our 4 parts.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be kind of looking at right here. Okay? How are we doing over here? We good? Natural selection.
Okay, what was good doing natural selection?
So you guys are just going to write down some key things that you remember about Charles Darwin and natural selection. Okay?
He went on the HMS Beagle. I went to the Galapagos, but still. That's first more than 5. Okay, we're good.
Alright, we got about 1 more minute, and then we're going to share. How are we doing? Everything good? Okay, so, yep, we're just looking at our 4 months. And then where did Charles Darwin go? Do you remember? Yep, the Galapagos Islands. And then what animal did you look at on the Galapagos Islands? Finches. Right? Do you want to tell Gabby what the finches were about?
He was really talking about how they didn't have the same characteristics and the same traits.
Right, perfect. Good job. Okay, you guys good? All right, so let's go ahead and share. So what do we already know about Charles Darwin and natural selection? Who can give me a response here on what we already know? Nichelle?
He discovered natural selection from the Galapagos Islands.
Right, he went to the Galapagos Islands and he looked at natural selection. What animal did he really look at there? Cole?
The finches.
The finches, okay? He looked at the finches. And who can kind of tell me a little bit about natural selection? What does that kind of mean, natural selection? Nichelle?
It's the driving force of evolution.
Right, it's the driving force of evolution. Okay, and that's what we talked about yesterday. We really went over our key vocabulary words, and today we're going to take those key vocabulary words like natural selection, environmental resources, and we're going to look at how that affects evolution. Okay? All right, so before we dive into that, let's go ahead and look at our language objectives and our content objectives for the day. So I'm going to read them, and you guys are just going to repeat after me. Okay, so for our content objectives, we have students will be able to describe how traits and environmental factors help a species survive. Guys, repeat after me.
Students will be able to describe how traits and environment help a species survive.
Perfect. Our language objectives we're going to look at, we're going to be listening, speaking, reading, and writing today. So students will be able to restate examples of natural selection by talking with a partner. So repeat after me.
Students will be able to restate examples of natural selection by talking with a partner.
Perfect. Okay? For speaking, we're going to be describing natural selection. So students will be able to describe natural selection orally by using sentence frames. Repeat.
Students will be able to describe natural selection orally by using sentence frames.
Perfect. Okay? For reading, we're going to be identifying key vocabulary words. So students will be able to identify key vocabulary words.
Students will be able to identify key vocabulary.
Perfect. For writing, we actually have two things we're going to be doing. Okay, we're going to be providing feedback to our peers, and we're going to be writing sentences about natural selection. So students will be able to provide feedback to their peers by using sentence frames.
Students will be able to provide feedback to their peers by using sentence frames.
Perfect. And then students will be able to write 2 sentences about natural selection by using a word bank.
Students will be able to write 2 sentences about natural selection by using a word bank.
Awesome. So let's look up here about what we're learning today. So today we're going to be describing how traits and environmental factors help a species survive. How are we learning it? We're going to be doing 2 activities, a 4 corners activity and a paper toss. How am I going to know that I learned it? We're going to know that we learned it because we're going to be able to write 2 sentences about natural selection. And I have our language objectives over there on the board so that we can kind of reflect on those throughout the lesson, okay? All right, so let's review our key vocabulary. Our key vocabulary we looked at yesterday was natural selection, species, environment, genetic traits, and adaptation. These are those words that we wrote down on page 106 and 107 in our tip chart in our interactive notebook. So to review that, we're going to be doing an activity called 4 corners. So let's look at our instructions, and then we're going to get into our groups. Okay? So 3 instructions we're going to look at first. We're going to get with our activity partner. I will give you a key vocabulary word and a piece of chart paper, and then you're going to wait quietly for more directions, okay? Cole, can you repeat what we're going to be doing?
We're going to get with our activity partner, and then each group will get a key vocabulary word and chart paper, and then we wait for you to give us more directions.
Perfect. Why don't we go ahead and stand with our activity partners and go to each of the 5 tables. So you guys are going to be looking at genetic traits. You guys are going to be looking at organism. You guys are going to be looking at adaptation. You all will be doing environment. And you all will be doing natural selection. Okay? Remember, I have colored pencils and markers up here as you need them. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at what we're going to be doing with our chart paper. Okay? So, we are going to divide our chart paper into 4 sections, just like right here. We're going to title our first section illustration, our second section sentence, our third section definition, and our fourth section vocabulary words. So those are going to be our titles for our chart paper. So let's go ahead and quickly divide into 4 and put our titles in our sections. If you you need rulers, they are over in our ruler box. So we're just dividing into 4 sections, and we're going to title our sections, just like we have up on the board. Okay, see Pedro's group is doing a good job. You guys are doing a good job. All right. So I'm going to give you an example of what we're going to be doing, okay? So if I gave each of you a task card with your key vocabulary word on it, okay? So here's my example. If my key vocabulary word was sun, then I would write my vocabulary word in the vocabulary word box. I'm going to write the definition from my tip chart. Remember, we're looking at pages 106 and 107. That the definition of the sun is that the sun is the star at the center of the solar system. I draw a nice big picture of the sun, and then I'm going to use the sun in a sentence. The sun is the main source of energy for life on Earth. Okay, so we're going to use our key vocabulary words, and we're just going to quickly do our 4 corners activity. Okay, so let's get started with our key vocabulary word. If you need markers and colored pencils, they're up on the front of the table. Okay? You're good? It's about right here. Okay. We good?
Maybe you could work on the sentence and I could like you do that using the like
Okay, so we're looking at page 106 and 107. So we are right here. I like how Helen and Gabby are dividing and conquering. That's a good strategy to use. One of them is doing the sentence and one of them is doing the definition. Perfect. You guys look like you're on a good track. Here's our sticky notes for our gallery walk. Alright, we're about to be finished, so here are our sticky notes for our gallery walk. Okay, so looks like we're all finishing up on our drawings. I gave you guys sticky notes because we're about to do a gallery walk. So let's do about 1 minute to finish up our coloring, and then we're going to move into our gallery walk. You guys done? Perfect. You guys about done? Perfect. Pedro, how you guys doing? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You good? Ava, how's your group doing? We're done? All right, so we are about to transition into our gallery walk. Make sure that your chart is out so that people can see. Okay, we are going to stand up and walk around to different charts. But before we stand up, let's go over what we're going to write on our sticky notes that I gave you. Okay? So you are going to add comments to people's charts about their key vocabulary word. Okay, so I have 2 sentence stems for you guys to choose from. We can either write, we agree with your picture, definition, or sentence because, so we need to have a because here. Okay, another idea for a picture, definition, or sentence would be, okay, so we're doing our descriptions. We're trying to explain based on our key vocabulary words. Okay, so let's stand up and we're going to rotate to the table to the left of you and then add a comment using your sticky notes. So you guys are going to write it here? All right, right here. All right, so we're going to look and we're going to use our sentence stems. Now that we transitioned back from our key vocabulary, we did our gallery walk, we reviewed the words we looked at yesterday, we're now going to take our vocabulary and kind of see where it is in natural selection. How does it play a role in natural selection? Okay, so who remembers our moths, our peppered moths? Who remembers talking about our peppered moths? Natalie, do you want to tell us about our peppered moths?
Yeah, during the kind of like revolution, the trees either turned black or white. So either the black moths or the white moths would blend in. And
Right, so after the Industrial Revolution, what was the Industrial Revolution? Do you guys remember? We talked about it, Cole?
Mechanical advancement.
Right, so there was mechanical advancement in England that they used coal, and that coal turned our trees black in England. Okay, so what happened then to the white peppered moths once our trees turned black? What happened to them, Ava?
Their population went down.
Right, their population went down. Okay, their population went down. Why? Natalie?
because they were able to be seen because they were white and couldn't blend in.
Right, they couldn't blend into the trees anymore. They didn't fit into the trees, so they were easily seen by birds. Okay, so their population went down. What happened to the black pepper moths? Oh, Pedro?
Their population increased.
Right, their population increased because they could hide better on the tree. Okay, that color, what can we call that color? What would be a scientific word to call that peppered moth color or that black color? What do you think? A what, Pedro?
Camouflage?
Okay, camouflage would be a great word. Okay, what about some of our key vocabulary words we just looked at? What would be a word that we could say? Just like we have blue eyes, we have brown hair, Eden? A trait. Good job, Eden. So that coloring of the moths is a trait. Okay, and so we're going to look at what role do traits have in natural selection. Okay, and to do that, we're going to look at bird beaks. Okay, bird beaks are a type of trait. So I have 3 birds up here. Okay. Why do you think each bird beak has a different shape? Why would bird beaks have a different shape? Cole?
Because they adapted to their environment and some beaks aren't suited for different environments.
Okay, some beaks aren't suited for different environments. I like how you use the word adapted from our key vocabulary. Let's quickly talk with our elbow partner about why each bird has a specific beak. Why would each bird have a specific beak? Okay, talk very quickly.
They need to survive. God said survive
All right, do we think we have a good answer on why after what Cole had said? Okay, who can tell me, Ava?
We think that the birds who had the shorter beaks, maybe for food, they couldn't get the food.
Okay, so possibly we have different beak choices because of different food. Okay, we find our different foods in our environment. Those are our different environmental factors, right? So we have our different bird beaks kind of maybe based on a food source. Okay, what other things do you think birds use beaks for? Gabby?
The woodpecker would use his beak to make holes to live in.
Right, so the woodpecker might use his beak to get into the tree. Okay, so there are lots of different ways that birds use beaks. Okay, they're used for eating, grooming, moving things, killing their prey, and feeding their young. So for lots of different things. Okay? So, do we remember talking about Charles Darwin and his finches? Where did he see his finches? Can somebody tell me, Nicelli? The Galapagos Islands. And what did he notice about those finches? Okay, what did they look like? Were they all the same? No. Okay, they were not all the same. So looking at our chart, we have 6 different types of finches here. Okay, our chart tells us the beak shape. It tells us the name of the finch. It tells us the main food source, the feeding adaptation, meaning what type of beak does it have, okay, and the habitat it lives in. All right, the Galapagos Islands, was each island the same? No, what was kind of different about the islands? What did the islands have that were different? Cole?
Food sources.
Food sources, okay, and maybe what else? What else do you think, maybe, looking at our chart?
Habitat?
The habitats, okay, the habitats of where they live. Okay, so we have these different finches that eat different things. This vegetarian tree finch eats fruit, while this cactus ground finch eats cacti. Okay, so let's look at some questions on how we can look at this chart. Okay, so what is an example of a trait in this chart? What trait are we looking at? Pedro?
The beak.
The beak shape, okay? Each bird has a different beak. Why do these finches eat different foods? Why would they eat different foods, Nicelli?
They don't really have an option of it. It's just like what they can find.
It's what they can find in their what?
Habitat.
Their habitat, their environment. Okay, they have different food sources because they live in different environments. Okay, so let's quickly talk with our elbow partner using this information. How could the beak trait help these birds survive in natural selection? Okay, so talk quickly with your elbow partner about that.
It wouldn't be able to reproduce. And then the best would be to survive and only be the only. Yeah. They leave the go to a different food that they actually.
So we should be looking at maybe our different environments or different food sources.
All over.
All right, thumbs up if we're ready to share. Are we good or do we need some more time? Pretty good? Awesome. Okay, so who can share what they talked about with their elbow partner on this? Nicelli?
For the cactus ground finch, we said that maybe it can pick out the spines or the juice inside the cactus with its beak.
Okay, so we see that the cactus ground finch kind of has a longer beak, right? So maybe that's used, just like Nicelli said, to get into the cactus, because those spines are going to be hurtful, right? So it needs a longer beak to kind of get in there. So that's a trait that helps it survive in its what?
Habitat.
Its habitat or environment, right? Okay. All right, so using our key vocabulary word, we're going to do an activity using our prompt, which is in our blue box, okay? So everybody, let's get out a sheet of paper. Just a sheet of notebook paper. All right. So on our notebook paper, we are going to write 2 reasons why traits help an organism survive. Okay, if I am asking for 2 reasons, how many sentences am I asking for, Devin?
2.
I'm asking for 2 sentences. Okay, and to answer this prompt, we're going to use our sentence stem, that traits help an organism survive because. Okay, I have our key vocabulary words up there for you guys to use in your sentences. So how many sentences are we writing? Can somebody answer that for me?
2.
Devin? 2, okay? And we need to be using our key vocabulary. So you're going to write 2 sentences, and then we're going to pause, and we're going to do our paper toss activity. So now what we're going to do is do our paper toss. So let's look at our instructions. Okay, you're going to crumple up your sheet of paper into a little ball, and you're just going to put it in the middle of your table. Okay, so let's crumple it up and put it in the middle of the table. Awesome. All right, so when we do our activity, we're going to stand up. One person is going to pick a paper ball at a time. That person's going to open it up. That person's going to read the sentence out loud. Okay? Then another person at the table is going to repeat the 2 reasons that that person wrote about natural selection, saying, I think I heard you say blank. Is that correct? Once that has happened, you guys will lay out the sheet of paper because I'm going to collect them. And then once everybody has gone, we're going to sit down so that we know that we've gone. Are we good? Awesome. All right. Let's get started. You guys can stand up. All right, so Ava, what do you got?
Natural selection is the process where animals adapt to have the best traits to survive in their environment. The second sentence is Charles Darwin studied the finches on the Galapagos Islands and saw they had different beaks at every island.
Okay.
I can say that natural selection helps out with the beetles, and that Charles Darwin went to the Galapagos Island and learned that the finches have different beaks every time.
Perfect. Awesome. Good job, guys. Okay, so I'm going to collect our papers. Y'all did a great job restating. And now let's take a look at what we have accomplished or what we have done today. Okay, so let's review. Today we described how traits and environmental factors help a species survive. Remember, describe is kind of where explaining. Okay, we restated examples of natural selection by talking with a partner. That's what we did with our paper toss activity. Okay, where somebody read a sentence out loud and the other person repeated it back. We described natural selection orally by using sentence frames. We've been doing that throughout with our Think, Pair, Share. For reading, identified key vocabulary words. For writing, we provided feedback to our peers about our chart papers and our key vocabulary words by using sentence stems. We wrote 2 sentences about natural selections by using our word bank of our key words. Okay, so we got about 4 more minutes left of class, so we're going to quickly do our exit ticket. Okay, so our emoji exit ticket, I'm going to hand you one. You're going to write down 3 vocabulary words that you learned today. You're going to circle an emoji about how you feel about the content objective on natural selection, and then you're going to tell me why. Okay? So you're going to complete this, and you're going to hand it to me as you walk out the door. Okay? You guys go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.